Hello and welcome to Startup Standouts. I am your host, Samantha White, and today I am joined by Kids Market graduate, Capri Fife. Capri has operated out of some of our first and earliest markets in Salt Lake City, and while she's currently in college, she first found the markets when she was just 9 years old. Isn't that right, Capri?
Yes, we first heard of the markets. My mom saw it on Facebook one time, I think back in 2017. So I was about 9 or 10. And we went to the markets for a few years and I just loved it.
That's awesome. And you're 18 now, so you no longer go to markets, but you went up until you couldn't anymore, right?
Yeah, so I am graduated from the markets now. We didn't do it up until I turned 18, but we did do it for a few years when I was younger.
Gotcha. That's awesome. And can you tell us more about what your business was, what the name was, what you sold, and where you were located? What was your kind of home metro?
Yeah, so me and my sister Annika, we started a caramel apple business and it's called Anne Marie Apples and it's both of our middle names. We live in Harriman, Utah, so I guess we're in the Salt Lake City, Utah metro, and so we just sold caramel apples.
That's awesome. And what was it like going to like the very first market with your brand new product, your brand new business? You've never done this before. What was that experience like?
It was so nerve-wracking for me. I'm 3 years younger than my sister, and so she's older. She had more experience like talking to adults and stuff like that. And I'm just more of a quiet person, and so it was really scary for me to go to this market. I'd never done it before. I had to talk to adults, try to sell my apples. So it was very nerve-wracking, but it just pushed me and I learned so much from it.
That's awesome. What was the process like at home, kind of behind the scenes? Like, how did you guys come up with the idea? How did you guys divvy up the workload at home? And then how did it go? How did that transition to the market?
Yeah, so we used to make caramel apples with my family around holidays and stuff like that. And so one year my mom was like, "Why don't you guys try to sell these apples? Like, we're making caramel apples for ourselves anyways. You might as well try to make a few bucks doing it." And so at first we just started selling to our neighbors and they loved it. And so my mom again encouraged us to grow our business. And so we brought it to the markets and it wasn't too hard working with my sibling. I know other siblings might really struggle with that because people would ask us like, "Do you guys not fight? Do you guys not hate each other when you're like owning a business together?" I think me and my sister are just really close. We've always been best friends. And so, of course, we had our problems and like our difference of opinions, but we always worked it out and it never caused too big of a problem.
That's awesome. I think we see a lot of sibling businesses at our markets, and it's always interesting because there's always a different dynamic and a different experience with the siblings, but it's always a good experience, even if there is sometimes some tension between siblings, as there usually is, to have
Mhm.
to work together and have to get to the markets and figure out how to work together and sell your product and grow your business. So that's really awesome. So were you the money handler? How did you and your sister split up the responsibilities both at the market and at home with the preparing of the apples?
So my sister's older than me. She's 3 years older. And so when we were younger, she would do the caramel because it's a little more tricky. And so she would handle the caramel. I would prep the apples to be dipped. I'd take off the stickers and stems and put the sticks in the apples. And then she would dip them in caramel and then we would both decorate them. And then for when we were at the markets, I think it's just a personality difference. I really like numbers. I've always liked math and like organizing things. And so I think that's how we decided that I would handle like the money and just any sort of counting or organizing thing. Initially, she would talk to customers more than I did, and she would kind of handle like giving them the apples and I would take the payment and stuff like that.
So do you remember making that first sale?
I don't remember the first sale, but I do remember just feeling so accomplished after selling apples and, selling out of our apples. It just felt really good that people wanted our product and they were liking it and just seeing all of our hard work just being rewarded for our hard work.
That's awesome. And how did you guys figure out the profit margins and how much it costs to make the product versus going to market and selling it? What was that process like as a young business owner?
Yeah, our mom helped us so much. Our parents were our number one supporters. And so they just taught us what a good profit margin should be. We shouldn't be spending too much money. And so we just always kept track of our costs and made sure that they were staying under our profits so that we could actually make a profit.
Awesome. Gotcha. And what were some of the challenges in the beginning versus later on in the business as well?
Yeah, I think at the beginning we had more challenges just with our products because we were still figuring out exactly what our product should be and how things would work. So, for example, when we were selling at the children's markets, it gets hot in the summer, and so we were selling at a market and the chocolate started melting right off the apple. And we were like freaking out, like, oh my gosh, people aren't gonna buy these. The chocolate's like melting and sticking to the bag. It was a nightmare. And so we just had to start bringing coolers and we just laid the bottom with ice packs and then put the apples in and it worked out great. So those were kind of the simpler problems at the beginning, just kind of tweaking the product. And then as we started growing using social media, we had a little bit more like serious problems where we would post on Facebook and we might get some nasty comments or, you know, some unhappy customers. And so that was frustrating because we didn't want all of our other customers to think that we were the worst. And so we had to learn how to deal with customers like that, deal with them respectfully while still maintaining our brand and our reputation.
I can't believe someone would be upset about caramel apples and leave nasty comments about that. That's so crazy to me, but
Yeah.
I guess that's the world we live in. On the flip side of that, what were some of your greatest accomplishments and what are you most proud of?
Good question. I think the thing that I'm most proud of is me and my sister went and sold at Swiss Days. It's a big Christmas event up in Midway, Utah. And we brought about 400 caramel apples and we sold all of them. And it was just a huge operation. The week or two leading up to it, it was just all we were doing was just making caramel apples. And we were like trying to find places in our house to keep the apples. Like there was just so many apples. And even at that one, it was really cold. And so we had to bring our coolers back, but this time we uh, turned on a heater and just faced it toward the cooler so that they could stay a little warm because in the cold, the chocolate cracks, the caramel is way too hard to even eat. And so I think that Christmas market was just a huge accomplishment, and we did that for a few years. So yeah, I just think the quantity that we sold there just made me really proud.
Yeah, that's huge. And how old were you at those, or when you, I guess that maybe the first market of those that you did?
Probably 11 at the first one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people, I think, maybe underestimate what a young person can do, but sometimes you just give them the opportunity, give them the space to do something big like that, and they'll blow you out of the water. That's such an important thing for us to remember is that our kids are capable of more than we might initially think. So that's awesome to hear that. You may have kind of already touched on this with the first sale, but when like going home from that first market, making a profit, did you guys make a profit the first market?
Yeah. Mhm.
And what was that like going home and being like, wow, we did it. We made money.
Yeah, it feels amazing because, of course, you don't know how much you're gonna sell when you go to the market, and that was something that we had to figure out how many apples to bring, depending on the event and the location, and even the weather and the time of day. If it's around lunchtime, a lot of people are hungry, they might buy a caramel apple. But yeah, after that, the first few markets, just seeing that our hard work was finally paying off after so much like worrying about if it'll work. So it was really cool to see that profit come in.
And did you have a favorite of your products? Did you have like a recommendation when people came up? You were like, oh, you know, you would really like this caramel apple.
Yes, our top seller is the apple pie apple. So it's just caramel, white chocolate, cinnamon sugar. It's just a classic. And that's honestly my favorite. And I'm not saying that just because it's most popular. It's just so good. You can't go wrong. And we started selling other things that were dipped in caramel. We tried doing Oreos and marshmallows and pretzels, but we always just came back to the caramel apples and specifically the apple pie is super popular.
And was it like a whole apple or did you like slice them or was it like a traditional caramel apple?
Yeah, so we actually at events we would sell at the children's markets, we could offer to slice it up for them right there so they could eat it, or we just had packaged ones that they could take if they wanted to take it home.
Oh, that's awesome. That's such a great idea because that's always my thing when I have caramel apples. I'm like, how do I eat this thing?
Yeah,
So
and some kids would come and buy an apple, and I guess they might not have known that we could slice it, and so we would see a kid walking around just, like, gnawing on the apple.
that's awesome. That's so funny. When you were at the markets, how did you guys get people to stop at your booth? What did your marketing look like? Your promotions? How did you set up your booth? Or was one of you trying to get people into the booth? Like how did you guys get people to stop in and actually at least look at your product and then get them to buy?
One thing we started doing was we started selling samples. So we already had the cutting board there for when people wanted to eat the apple right there. And so we started just slicing up samples. We put a little toothpick in a bite-sized piece and we had a little tray. And my mom, of course, the parents aren't supposed to interact with the customers, but my mom told us, you guys need to sell these samples. You guys need to take the sample tray and go stand outside your booth, like in front. And I remember I was just mortified to do that. I was like, "This is so uncomfortable. I'm standing out here, like, what if nobody wants a sample? What if I get rejected?" But that was a huge thing that drew people in. If they come everyone takes a sample because it's free. If they come and try a sample and they love it, then they'll buy an apple. So that was a big thing that helped people come to our booths, and then we also learned how to create a brand for our business. At first, I think we just had, like, a table and a canopy, and that was it, and eventually, our mom helped us make a banner that would go on the front of our canopy, and we got a matching tablecloth to put on our tables. I think at one point we had little curtains on, like, the poles of the canopy, and, like, all the colors were coordinated, and so I think creating a brand and an image for your business is really important too, just so people instantly recognize the colors or the logo, and so I think that really helped too.
What is something that you might tell someone who is just getting started or maybe hasn't started yet or just got started? What would you tell them to help them keep going or advice that you would give them? What would you say?
I think for me especially, I was just a quiet kid, and so trying to sell my apples was really intimidating. Talking to adults, it was just really scary, and I think a lot of other kids feel that way too. And so I would say be confident in yourself, be confident in your product and your abilities, and it's all worth it. Even if, you try to sell to one person and they say no, that's just one customer, and you have so many others that will say yes. And so I would say to try and grow your confidence and your speaking abilities. I learned so much about communication, so that's what I would say.
That's awesome. Well, tell us more about where you're gonna go from here. Like you've done the markets, you've aged out of them now, but what are your goals in the future and how are you gonna carry the lessons that you learned at the markets into your next endeavor?
Yeah. I I even thought I'm at college right now, and when I was deciding where to go for college, I was even thinking about, well, what if I just don't go to college and I just like make this business big? I could do that. I think that is a very big challenge that I wasn't ready for to take on the whole entrepreneurial mindset, but I think I can definitely take the skills that I learned. The communication, how to problem solve is a huge thing that I learned. There's so many problems in running a business. There's no instruction manual on how to be an entrepreneur. You're doing everything for the first time. And so I learned how to critically think and to solve my own problems for myself and to be independent, to take responsibility for my actions and anything that happened in my business. I had to take responsibility because it's my business. So,
That's awesome. And so is there anywhere we can see you next? Is there anywhere you want to share for our listeners to follow you? Or if not, that's okay too, but if you want to plug yourself in any way, this is your time.
yeah, we have an Instagram called Anne Marie Apples. We haven't sold much lately since we've been at college, but we usually sell around Christmas time. That's our big time to sell.
Well, that's awesome. Do you ship or is it just local?
It's local.
Okay. Gotcha.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you, Capri, so much for coming on. Are there any final thoughts that you want to share with our listeners today?
I would just say to the entrepreneurs, be confident, have fun, and be unique. The beautiful thing about being an entrepreneur is that you can do whatever you want with your business. So have fun with it.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in to our very first episode. Thank you, Capri, for joining us today. And we will
Thank you
see
so
you
much.
all in the next one, of course. Bye bye.